the reason I had such high conviction about what it was we were doing and how blockchain could solve the problems is because I'd worked in an industry my entire career and could see those problems.
Exactly.
And it's like I know 1,000 people with the problem that I'm solving, so like I don't have to be like, I think we can find this person here. It's just like, hey mate, we can make your ads more transparent, and like, well, that's actually quite interesting for me. And it's like, knew it, you know, and like
Yeah.
Conversation with our non-exec director. He is non-exec director for Alkimi, but his day job is he's an SVP over at Warner Brothers. And we had this really like nerdy conversation about the way in which people bid on ads is that ad inventory sent to a buyer is kind of arbitrarily throttled because it's expensive to listen to the billions of ad requests that exist.
Yeah.
And then the buyers start to bid. But what actually makes more sense is if it's more like an order book that you would see in crypto. So it's like, here's all my bids, here's all the prices that I'm asking for, and then you can kind of match them in real time. But that doesn't happen necessarily. So there's such just like inefficiency with the way that auctions are matched. And we were talking about it in the room next door. I think this could be quite a cool idea. And then we spoke to Rob and he was like, that would be a cool idea. So like immediately you can be like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He can validate what we're thinking. That can then help us prioritize the products that we build rather than just being like, hey, we can just build anything on this platform.
Well, that's also the biggest problem that founders have, or that I've seen in the last sort of 5 and a bit years in venture is founders spreading themselves too thin and not having like a focus. And so they keep moving the goal, and then there's how they can't execute on anything. And so like being centered and knowing kind of what your roadmap is and where you're going and like speaking to your customers is just so important versus like trying to do everything and be nothing.
Yeah.
You've probably seen that.
It's tough though, because like a lot of blockchain companies are still quite B2C in some degree.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's quite narrative driven, I think, as well. So it's tough not to get pulled in a certain direction.
True. Everything is narrative.
Which has worked against us a little bit because we don't necessarily fit into one specifically, you know, like we have a distributed network that provides compute. So that's a bit deep in, right?
And then how do you engage that audience?
Without just being explicitly deep in. And then it's like, well, the other point that we're making is that there's $600 billion of ad spend that's off chain that if you run a validator, you can earn yield from. So that like makes it a bit more RWA.
Yeah.
And then we're also we provide a layer 2 for ad transactions to take place. So we are infrastructure. So it's like, okay, which one do we lean into? And that has worked against us a little bit. But fundamentally, like that's kind of the best of all of those things.
At least you can departmentalize it.
Yeah, true. It does still make your life difficult. And then you see like AI pops up, you're like, oh shit, what are we doing with AI? But how do you deal with, do you find that is a challenge for portfolio companies that are like, oh, we've seen this, we think this could be cool?
Or like a customer asks them for something and then they just start, right, we're all just going to build that. Yeah. It's one customer. And so, and then, you know, they've not done enough research, they're just sort of excited and then from various different customer requests and sort of lose focus on actually what they're building, or there's like a narrative or they're focusing so much on. The other thing, I think the hard thing about Web3 founders is they don't just have to think about product, they have to think about token launch.
Yeah, which is its own product, I would say. Exactly,
so I actually think it's quite difficult to be able to focus on both.
It is,
along with hiring and fundraising. I didn't ask if Alkimi, I didn't know how much you've raised.
So we did a private sale originally about 3 years ago, $2.35 million.
Okay, nice.
So that got us going. But now we have people that pay to use the service. So the exchange charges 3 to 8% depending on the ad format. So we typically have display, video, and then we're starting to work more now with connected TV providers, which is a whole other conversation itself. That's a very tricky market to navigate. But display and video is our bread and butter, and that is online anywhere where you've seen an ad, we can really facilitate that. Aside from like the walled gardens, like we don't.